going, or is this just a bluff? We've got all angles, I'm telling you. Meanwhile, we preview baseball from the Bristol Speedway. AJ Brzezinski joins us to talk about one of the most unique baseball games in the history of the sport. And finally, Brew's list of who's making the leap this year. We've got one list for the AFC, one list for the NFC, and one of the lists might actually get punted during the show if something happens with Micah Parsons.
Who knows?
We don't know.
We can't punt something else?
You know, the whole
my list?
Half your list.
As hard as I worked on that list.
To Monday.
I was in the room upstairs all night.
You were working hard because at
grinding.
2:15, I was like, does Brew have his list yet? Can I put something on?
Grinding.
Coach Manjini in for Nick. A lot of people are like, where's Nick? I don't know at this time.
I don't know, literally.
I don't know, but he's not here.
But
he's doing well. It's not
cards.
like he's sick
probably
or
playing
missing.
Cards
Yeah,
probably good. He's just not here.
Kevin Wildes, Chris Broussard. We are starting right now with the huge news out of Dallas. Micah wants out. Diana Rossini reported that he was considering a trade demand this morning. We're like, oh, wow, that would be interesting. And this afternoon, he demanded a trade. Micah posting a long explanation on Twitter about his stalled negotiation that in his mind is now over, or maybe not. Maybe this is just part of it. I stayed quiet, but again, after repeated shots at myself and all the narratives, I have made a tough decision. I no longer want to play for the Dallas Cowboys. Ooh. My trade request has been submitted to Stephen Jones personally. Okay. Brew, your reaction to Micah's long post.
Bravo.
Oh.
Because the whole post was really, I mean, he went through, Coach, the past few years of last season, reaching out to Jerry, trying to renegotiate. Fine. Okay, you don't want to. I'm fine. He played through it last year. Obviously had the injury, but played. And then this year going to Jerry. And the reason I say bravo is because according to Micah, and this was the reporting from Diana Rossini earlier in the day before Micah released his statement, they feel like Jerry tried to negotiate with Micah by himself without his agent being present. And according to the reports in Micah, Jerry feels like he and Micah made a deal, without the agent, being involved. And then Micah said, my agent will reach out to you. And Jerry and Steven and Dallas has not gotten back to the agent other than Adam, who he mentioned, not Jerry or Stephen Jones. And so I just think that is incredibly underhanded. Like, if this is true, if you are trying to negotiate with a player who obviously doesn't know, even as he might be up to some degree on the rules and the salaries and things like that, that's why a player has an agent, because the agent knows the contracts, the rules, all the small,
the guarantee.
All of that. Like, there's no way a player, unless he wants to, like Lamar Jackson did. I just think that is incredibly underhanded if that's the case. And so I'm glad that Micah has put this on Front Street. Like, now, you hear so many players that have gone through this with the Cowboys, particularly older retired guys, just praise Jerry. It always works out. He pays guys. He pays them more than sometimes they should have gotten and stuff like that. But I'm glad Micah put this out there because, Coach, I feel like Jerry has financial security. The players in many cases don't. Micah's trying to get it. This is his first huge contract. He's trying to get it. And he's trying to get it in a sport where any moment your season or career could end. That's the thing. Micah's he's earned it. He's not getting it. And while Jerry might think, I'm going to pay him in a month or we'll get it taken care of, if that's what he thinks, that's kind of how I feel about him. The players, like, on pins and needles. Like, when am I going to get this done? I want to lock this up because I could step out there in week 1 and get hurt. And so I'm glad Micah put this out there. Now, all that said, I still think the Cowboys will work this out. Maybe this will quicken things. I think it can be worked out. But I think now Jerry is going to have to, he's going to have to acting correctly, in my opinion, to get Micah back on board, and he's going to pay him a huge contract. I still think he'll be a Cowboy, but I'm glad Micah put this out.
Yeah, we saw part of the statement. You read the whole statement, I assume. So do you think that Micah wrote that whole statement by himself?
No, I mean, I think he narrated it to,
wrote the whole statement up, and Micah just put that out there. And I understand that you want to have the owner negotiate with the agent, and I respect that, and at the end of the day, that's what's going to end up happening. But the fact that those two are talking, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because the decision maker is Jerry Jones for the club, and the decision maker is Micah Parsons for the player. So the agent works for the player. So if those two decision makers over the course of being together are talking about what's important to you, what's important to me, this is where we are, this is where you are, I don't think there's anything wrong with that part of it. Ultimately, the actual contract will be negotiated with the agent, but the person who has to make the decision is the player. And I've had discussions with players in the past who are holding out, and you have that discussion. At the end of the day, you have to make this decision. You have to do what's right for you, but it's not the agent's decision. And sometimes the agent is working not just for your contract, but for all the future contracts that he hopes he's going to get. Because if he gets you this, special deal, then he can go sell that to the other guy. So there's an element of that. The other thing that comes into play with agents is there could be bad blood between Jerry and this agent. And I've been part of organizations where we wouldn't draft guys because of the agent that they had, because like in baseball with signability, that it was just going to be too difficult every time you had to deal with the player's agent to get things done. And maybe there's some history there that we don't know about. Now, the difference is that was prior to us drafting them. They're married now, so it's like your in-laws. The in-laws are the in-laws. You have to deal with the agent at that point. But I can't imagine that he's going to get traded. And this is just, to me, a way to try to hopefully put some public pressure on Jerry to get something done quicker. But he doesn't have many options. What's he gonna? The only thing he can do is sit out. The club has his rights.
And the contract tolls, if you sit out, you don't become a free agent next summer. It just goes. You have another year of being under contract. So I agree with you. Like I actually think it can be wise to talk some, but according to the reports in Micah, they're saying like Jerry feels like they had a deal. Like I don't know. I wasn't in the talks, but I doubt Micah was like, all right, $39 million a year. You know what I mean? Something like that. I'll take it. It was probably good, cordial conversation. I don't mean to interrupt you, but we've seen a lot of Micah's interviews, and we've seen a lot of Micah where he may say something without necessarily looking at the long-term ramifications of what he's saying. And we've done plenty of that through the course of the year. Couldn't you see Micah during a conversation saying, "Oh yeah, that sounds good." Yeah,
oh, yeah, I could. Yeah, and to the point where Jerry might be thinking, "All right, this is what he wants. I've talked to the kid. I've talked to the player. This is what he wants. It looks like we're, as long as we give X, Y, and Z,
but then
we've got a deal."
You see Micah in public saying there's nothing done. That I definitely could see Micah being like, "Oh, okay, all right, good."
Yeah, it sounds good.
Then and then he said, my agent will call you. Then when the agent calls, you should be like, look, I talked to Micah. We agreed to this. Obviously, the agent will go back and check with Micah. And if Micah's like, no, I didn't. I mean, that's around the ballpark, but we still got work to do.
It doesn't seem that difficult if they were close to an agreement. It feels like now there's just butting heads.
Yeah, I think it was probably just talking. Like Micah's like, yeah, all right, we're good.
And you also wonder, too, if they were close to an agreement and then the new deals came into play, new deals got signed, which kind of reset the market. Now, as the agent said, okay, the comps that we were using before are no longer the comps. Now we want this amount of money, which isn't unfair. Yeah. That's the danger that or that's the risk that you take when you let other contracts hit while you're waiting to sign your player.
Diana reporting that the Cowboys have no intention of trading Micah Parsons, so that I guess they are viewing this as just a strong negotiating tactic. Still, teams around the league are planning to reach out to check on his availability today. So what is this process like, Coach? Just explain to me what the process is like. The team says we don't have an intention to trade him, but if I'm the Bengal, if I'm somebody with cap space, the New England Patriots, I would feel like I would call. So what's that process like? And then are there teams that should be calling in your mind?
It's interesting because I was trying to think of what players have said, I want to trade during training camp and have actually gotten traded. Because there's not many that jump out at you where someone's been that frustrated, said they want to trade, and then they get traded. You know, one that we found was Deion Branch. So Deion Branch, this is a long time ago in New England, asked for a trade in August, and the Patriots said that you can go ahead and seek a trade with the assumption, I believe, that he wouldn't have any interest. Well, I was at the Jets. I had an interest. So we reached out and we said, yeah, we'll trade for him. So now once we put the fact that we would make the deal and they agreed that they would do a deal, then they had to honor their word, but they weren't going to trade with us, so they ended up trading Deion to Seattle. Yeah. But there was a little bit of someone had to show up and say, oh, you're offering it? We're in.
Right.
And then, of course, it just got him out of the division.
I mean, the Bengals should, if they're willing to pay some money, I'd call them and say, hey, we got a problem. You got a problem. You want Trey Hendrickson for Micah Parsons? I mean, I agree with, I don't think the Cowboys will trade Micah. But, and to your point, he can, and I've said he should not put on the pads until he's got the new contract. But at some point, that will work against him. Like if Jerry, it'll become a game of chicken. I think for Jerry, the challenge is if Micah doesn't play week 1, how, like Emmitt Smith tested Jerry and won way back 30 years ago. But Micah could say, I'm not starting the season. I'm not playing. And eventually I think Jerry would cave because your quarterback's making $60 million. You can't give up on a season when you're paying your quarterback, you're paying your receivers. You know, you got this big money in other places and you want to try to win now.
But remember I said that I was wondering if this, because it was a different offseason for the Cowboys and because they made the Schottenheimer hire, which again wasn't the flashy hire, and maybe there's a little bit of buyer's remorse on Dak's contract. Maybe there's a little bit of buyer's remorse on Zeke's contract when they redid that. He seems to really like what he did with CD. This could be one of those things where he's saying, I don't know if I want to commit this type of money long term. And, you know, if we're talking about, you know, a few $1 million a year, it sounds weird, but it's really a rounding error at that point. But he could be more dug in than we think because of his approach to this season.
So, hey, Dusty, we're kind of pulling reactions as we go and the news breaks. Do we have that Schefter tweet about Khalil Mack as a comp? This is something that Bill Barnwell wrote about when he was looking for comps. He actually wrote this article, I think, on Wednesday. He went through a few different guys who could be traded. Here's a very small fonted tweet that I actually can't even read from that distance. But a potential trade comp for Micah was 27-year-old Khalil Mack, traded from Oakland to the Bears. 2 firsts. There we go. Thank you, Dusty. 2 first-round picks, a third-round pick, and a 6th-round pick, and a 2nd-round pick, and a conditional 5th. So there's a lot there. And Micah's a year younger. So, look, it's a bit of a king's ransom. It's not quite Herschel Walker, which kind of set up the Cowboys dynasty there. But, Brew, if I'm the Bills, if I'm the Ravens, if I'm like, you know what, we keep hitting our head on the can't beat Patrick Mahomes ceiling, I would put in a call. I would let people know I put in a call. I think it's a sign to my organization, tell me if I'm wrong, that like we're going for it this year. I also think it does Micah a solid of like, hey,